Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of 305 Takes. Me and Angel are back here with a new episode reacting to a crazy, crazy week six. We saw the last two undefeated teams, San Francisco 49ers and the Philadelphia Eagles, suffer road defeats in pretty embarrassing fashion when you consider the circumstances that their opposing teams are under while facing them. And it was almost pretty much like the week of the upset and just weird stuff happening. And I know we're in October. October, it's spooky season, so it makes sense that the NFL season was this weird this week. What stood out to you about this week, Angel?
I think what stood out to me this week is kind of like the teams that should have been dominant didn't, they all struggled. They all struggled this week. And there's really only one team that was supposed to dominate and dominated. And that's, I mean, we'll talk about them later. Outside of that, every other team, I'm just like, man, we have so many teams now in the NFL with open flaws. And it's all the best teams because usually by now we could kind of pinpoint out. It's like, all right, it looks like these two are the clear best teams. There's really no flaws that they have. Right now, almost every powerhouse team has a clear flaw.
Yeah, and this especially once you start thinking that you have a grip of how the NFL landscape is going to be going into week six, and then next thing you know, I mean, we could get right to it. You have the San Francisco 49ers at 5-0 traveling to Cleveland, and they get upset with a final score of 19-17. And a lot of weird stuff happened in this game, like the pregame scuffle that they got into with Deebo Samuel and then Trent Williams coming in. And then in the game, San Francisco looked, like normal old San Francisco in the first half, had a 10-0 lead going into halftime. And then this is where you have your concerns about San Francisco. McCaffrey gets banged up. He returns for a little bit, but then comes out of the game. Deebo, who's already been banged up this year, gets injured in this one, doesn't return. And then, Purdy was basically just left back there. And he still had Kittle, who had a monster game, the week before against Dallas. And Purdy had a pretty bad game there. But still, I have to give them credit just for this fact alone. If Moody makes that kick, then we're not talking about
Put
this.
them in a
And,
position to win.
yeah, and it escapes. They can escape Cleveland with a victory if Moody just makes that kick. And it was just losing a PJ Walker is kind of concerning. And this is what you worry about with the San Francisco team is what team are they going to be fielding once they get into the playoffs? Because it seems like every year the injuries just mount for them. And, McCaffrey, for as good as he is, we always know that there's an injury right around the corner where he's out 2 to 4 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. And then, he comes back and he's still that dominant player. But it's just like, okay, how can this team sustain that? And then you pile on the fact that Deebo didn't finish this game. And that's when things really start to get scary.
Yeah, it was definitely something. And I think it kind of points out that Brock Purdy, when you play like when you don't have this all first team all pro of a roster, everyone looks at it as like, all right, can Brock Purdy beat us himself? And like you said, we do have to give him credit. He did put him in a position to at least get the game-winning field goal attempt. The Moody missed it. That happens. But for the majority of the game, Brock Purdy, I mean, he was just awful. I mean, his final stat line was 12 of 27, 125 yards, one touchdown, one pick, and his quarterback rating was 55. And early in that last drive, if Greg Newsome just played a little better, I don't even think they get past midfield. Like, I don't think they get past midfield, and Brock he wasn't good yesterday. And a lot of credit does go to the Cleveland Browns defense because they played amazing all around, probably until that very last drive, because I had no problems with how Myles Garrett was playing. Obviously, he had like two offside penalties, and then you had the secondary do great things. Once Deebo kind of went out, they really like homed in on Ayuk and Kittle to leaving Kittle with, like you said, one catch for 1 yard. Like, for any fantasy owner out there, I know they're just like pulling their hair. It's like, how? Where, but also this happens. I mean, any given Sunday, anyone can be beat. Anyone can be beat. And Myles hit it on the head last week. He's like, hey, upset alert. San Francisco 49ers against Cleveland. He hit it right on the head. So, I mean, props to you, man. I
And
was
that's
rooting
with
for
thinking
it.
that Deshaun was going to be playing.
Yeah, I was rooting for it going into the game. I was like, yeah, bro, like let's go 2 weeks in a row. Myles picks the upset of the week, and then you did it, bro.
Yeah, and I mean, we have to give a shout out to Cleveland's defense because that was the main reason that I thought that they could give could have a chance in this game because I was thinking, all right, the 49ers coming from the West Coast, haven't played the late game on Sunday, and then I feel like weird things just happen when you play AFC North teams. Like they drag you into that doldrum that is their that conference. But so the 49ers, they got 84 yards on 5 plays for their opening drive. Uh, then for the rest of the game, the Browns held the San Francisco 49ers to 10 points and 161 yards of offense the rest of the way. That that is showing up, and you can say whatever you want about the injuries. This is not how we see San Francisco play ever, like ever. And we always give the credit to Kyle Shanahan, and they're deservedly so. But I really think that this Browns defense is special, and we have to see what their quarterback situation is going to be because I know that they suffered the devastating loss of Nick Chubb on the Monday night game, and then they had Robinson Thompson played the last game that they had without Deshaun, and then this week they went with PJ Walker. But it they might have a chance to sneak into the playoffs, and that defense playing the way it is and being able to get after the quarterback and still be good in coverage as well is something that we're going to have to keep an eye on as we move down the rest of the season and see who we believe is truly contenders or not. I they had the bad loss where the offense couldn't do anything to Pittsburgh in that Monday night game. They had a weird loss to Baltimore to start the season. So
And
if
to the
you get
Steelers.
yeah, if you get a flip of the script in either one of those games, then Cleveland's kind of in control of their own destiny going forward in that AFC North. And it's not Cincinnati. We're going to talk about them later, but it's not like I don't think their offense as of yet is going to be anything that the Browns are going to fear, especially when you go up against an offense that's as potent as the San Francisco 49ers and basically shut them out for after the first quarter of the game. So I was truly impressed by this Cleveland victory, and I want to see how their season continues to unfold. And then if we're going to get any update on Deshaun, because I found it very, very weird that he did not play this game, especially considering it was coming off of a bye week. And from all reports that I've seen, it seemed
He
like the
looked
Browns
healthy.
had cleared
Yeah.
him to play going into the last game, and he
Yeah.
said he wasn't good enough. So if he was cleared to play 2 weeks ago and then have the bye and still not play this week, I want to know if it's something where he doesn't feel 100%, so he's holding himself out, or maybe there's a little bit more to the injury that's being let out to the public.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right on that. And I mean, it's definitely something to watch, but we can look at their schedule now and they still have a lot of winnable games. They play the Colts next week. Their next opponent on the 22nd. Then they have Seattle. That will be a good
That's
game.
home or away.
Both of them are road games.
Okay. Seattle on the road is going to be tough.
Yeah, that one's going to be tough. Then they come back home and play Arizona. That's a very winnable game. These next two games will be tough just because it's AFC North. They'll be at Baltimore, and their last meeting against Baltimore, gave like a really good showing. Lamar was actually great in that game. Then they have Pittsburgh, and like we said, they had that weird loss on Monday night, and then they got Denver, the Rams, Jacksonville, Chicago, Houston, the Jets, Cincinnati to end the year. So there's a lot of winnable games for this team. They have a chance to really go far, and like you said, they could very much sneak into the playoffs. It's just going to be, I feel, more like determined based on Deshaun. Because if Deshaun plays, I do feel like they can get in, and I feel like they could be a surprise team in the playoffs, depending on the matchup. Like a team that I feel like that kind of matches them strength for strength. I know we'll talk about them later. I think the Miami Dolphins, if they were to play the Cleveland Browns, it would actually be a test of strengths. Arguably one of the best defenses we've seen in the last 20 years against one of the most explosive offenses we've seen ever since the 2013 Broncos, almost 10
Yeah.
years ago. So I would, I feel like matchup wise, that would actually be great for the NFL, but we'll have to see if they even if I do think the Dolphins will make the playoffs, but it will be determined on Cleveland. And it's like, all right,
Yeah, we'll have to see what the seating is in the East in the AFC. And the AFC is just, we mentioned it going into the offseason, and people, and I feel like I was even rolling my eyes about how we were mentioning how much more dominant the AFC was than the NFC. We had, I think, six matchups of AFC versus NFC this past weekend, and the Eagles lost to the Jets, the 49ers lost to the Browns. The two best in the NFC lost to middle of the pack AFC teams that are probably going to be fighting for their playoff lives. In when we come down to the home stretch, the only NFC team that was really even kind of close was Seattle going to Cincinnati, and that was still a loss for the NFC. And I mean, the Giants kept it close too, but NFC not looking good this week in the head-to-head battle against the AFC. And that's why we mentioned it all week. So I think it is a good point. And when you have a team like Cleveland, who has had instability at the quarterback position, has suffered injuries, but then they can rely on that defense, that's going to be a problem for other teams coming up down the season when they start getting injuries. And now they have a solid defense coming in to mess things up for their offense. So I was really, really impressed with that Cleveland victory, and I'm going to keep an eye on them as the season goes on, especially for that AFC North. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they do come out as the division champions there. But let's move on to our second biggest upset. I mean, it's honestly 1A, 1B at this point. And this one, I have to say, I know I got the Dolphins hat on. Dolphins are all right. We're staying in our own lane. But I have to say, for as much as I don't like the New York Jets, it is very, very, very impressive that they sit at 3-3 going into their bye week, considering the stretch of schedule that they had, the quarterback play they've gone against, and that defense. It's given up some plays. They didn't have Sauce yesterday, but they
they're
beat the
legit.
Philadelphia Eagles for the first time in franchise's history. Um, no touchdowns for the second straight week. The defense for the Eagles defense had been scoreless in the second half and is now number one in the league. So the Jets have something cooking, and you saw the video of Aaron Rodgers throwing without the crutches or without a limp. I want the story of Zach Wilson leads them to the playoffs and then gets benched for Aaron Rodgers, and then Aaron Rodgers looks bad in that playoff game. That would be
Yeah, that's your
drama right
dream right
there.
there.
That would be drama right there.
Oh well, plus I think Miles would enjoy it. So for anyone who doesn't know, obviously Miles is a big Dolphins fan and he despises the Jets every chance he gets. But no, I do have to give them a bunch of credit because their defense showed up, and like you said, without Sauce Gardner, without DJ Reed, without some very good players on their defense, and they still played really well. I mean, Jalen Hurts, 3 picks in one game. I just going off of last season, he was so efficient with the football. Now he's already surpassed his the interceptions he had last year, and now the Eagles offense. I mean, I think it's coming to the point now, unless like when they're playing good teams, unless their defense can get some stops, their offense kind of has to do a lot of work because their defense can be attacked on the middle of the field, and if the opposing team just has minimal quarterback play like the Jets with Zach Wilson, they can beat you because they were able to do all the right things. I mean, they didn't turn over the football at all. I mean, credit to Zach Wilson on that. Brees Hall, he had a very good game. I felt Garrett Wilson, they got him 12 targets, 8 catches for 90 yards. I really like that.
Yeah. Garrett
Going,
Wilson has still been able to put up numbers even with Zach Wilson back there, and
yep,
trying to. All right, he's finally starting to get more comfortable. That doesn't mean that the offense has been that much better. It's
yep.
been a little bit more in sync and in rhythm, but the fact that he's still putting up numbers with Zach Wilson back there, I think just shows what type of player he is. And then you mentioned the Eagles offense, was not did not have their best performance yesterday, and then like you said, their defense kind of has to step up and fill that role, but when they were missing their rookie stud defensive tackle, Jalen Carter, for this game. They had Darius Slay out for this one as well. And, I think they suffered a Josh Jobe, the corner that they had come in to replace Slay, went out in this one too. And, the Jets have now face Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, yeah, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Jalen Hurts, and the defense has 8 interceptions against those three. They picked off Hurts 3 times in this one and forced a fumble and recovered it. And it's crazy because you mentioned those injuries that they had coming in, especially with Sauce being out. And going into this game, the Jets were number 29 in the NFL in as far as takeaways. And through 6 games this year, they have 13, tied
Yeah.
for second. So it says a lot. I know that they have Robert Saleh, who we all got familiar with from being the defensive coordinator over in San Francisco, but they were coming off 2 really impressive wins. They had the emotional victory against Sean Payton, who called out Nathaniel Hackett going in the offseason. Then they come back home, face an undefeated Philadelphia Eagles team, and are able to get the victory in that one. And now they go into their bye week having to feel good about themselves. I know that they have some issues in the secondary as well. Soft should be back, but I think DJ Reed is potentially looking like he might be out for a little bit. So I saw a report that they are reaching out to some free agent secondary players to see if they can get some bodies in there for the bye week and see if any of them can help out as they go along with their season. But
What's also been very beneficial to them without Rodgers, they're 3-3 going into their bye, which is very, very like good for them because like how you said, Aaron Rodgers throwing without the crutches on, and I mean he looked fine walking, but so we'll see. I mean, I think that the Jets could at least win like 6 out of their next like 9 games.
I mean, they got the hard
Schedule
part of their
out of the way.
schedules out of the way, and I thought, especially because he didn't play that much against the Eagles, but I thought Dalvin would be used from this part of the season until the bye, because they were wanted to work Brees back, but Brees looks like he's back. I mean, he had a career high 177 rushing yards last week. Then this week he had only 39 rushing yards, but he had the game-winning touchdown. He finished second on the team with 5 receptions, 54 yards. So 287 yards from scrimmage over the last 2 games. And going into the bye week, looking to get some more juice coming into the regular season, to the rest of the regular season, should do them justice. So, like I said, I'm very impressed that they're sitting at 3-3, and especially because of how bad it looked after Rodgers got injured. That Dallas game, we all remember that. I had Dallas in my survivor pool that week, but even how bad the offense looked in the Monday night game where Peyton Manning was just losing his mind, and then it's not like it's gotten any better, but they're making plays to win. I
Yeah, no,
mean,
they're
you even look at Zach
definitely.
Wilson's stat line yesterday: 186 yards, 19 of 33,
Yeah,
57% completion. Like,
yeah, it's
that's pretty bad, bro.
yeah, and that's where it's like in football we could always like expect this. It's very rare that a team that loses a turnover battle wins, and so for the Eagles, like you lost a turnover fight. You Jalen Hurts 3 picks. I mean, that was bad. And for anyone that doesn't know the Eagles, I'm kind of scared for them these next couple of games because here are their next games. They're going to face Miami this Sunday night. We're going to talk about that later on in the week. Then they play 2 divisional games against Washington, who has looked better this year compared to last year. Then they go and play Dallas. That's a divisional game. They're going to play them tough.
And Washington plays them tough every year.
Yep, same as Washington. And
Yeah.
then they have Dallas. Then they got the bye week. So it's like, all right. Then they play Monday night against Kansas City. Then they have Buffalo, San Francisco, Dallas again, and then Seattle. I see a lot of games where
That's a gauntlet right there.
that
That's a gauntlet.
where the Eagles maybe they go 500 in that stretch because that's not an easy stretch. And then they're going to end the year with 3 games against 2 against the Giants, 1 against the Cardinals, where I feel like they should, if the Eagles are who we think they are, they should win those last 3 games kind of with like not that much to worry, but it's going to be these next 8 games where it's like you have a real gauntlet. I think if you come out 4-4, I feel like that is amazing. Anything above that in terms of wins, I think that's incredible. But in order for that to happen, a couple of players need to play a little bit better. And one of them has to be Devontae Smith because he dropped a lot of key passes yesterday. And I felt there was at some moments where Jalen forced the football to him.
Yeah, and like I said last week, it's just weird with their offense. Like it does give you the vibe that they can attack you with anybody, but it's like, all right, who is the person that we're relying on when we really need something? Because, they obviously have the brotherly push, the worst played in football. They have AJ Brown, who's been balling ever since his blow up on the sideline, and Devontae clearly has the trust of Jalen. Like Jalen's going to look for Devontae all the time, even that last play on fourth
That was
down, they
such a
went
bad throw. Such a bad throw.
and throwing it into double coverage, like I did not understand that play calling at all. There was a lot of weird things that happened this week, a lot of weird play calling, but I just I do, and Swift was kind of a non-factor. I know he had the receiving touchdown, but he didn't have any type of
They just didn't want to
standout
run the
game in
ball.
this one.
No, they.
And then Lane Johnson goes down with the
Mhm.
ankle injury as well, so we'll have to monitor that as we go along in the season because we know that's probably I don't know, either their defensive line is probably 1A and offensive line is 1B of strongest group that they have on that team, and they're not even on the team, they're one of the stronger groups that we have across the NFL on both sides.
No, no, I agree with that 1A, 1B. I wouldn't mind whichever one is they want to switch the order up. I wouldn't argue that.
Especially when Jalen Carter's so dominant as a rookie so far.
Yeah. It kind of just also reminds people slap you like in the face. We understand some guys have issues coming out in the draft, but when they're that talented, like I think you can, as long as they are like a clean record their rookie year and for the majority of it, I believe they're going to be productive in the NFL.
Well, it also just speaks to like, all right, this might like the reason you can take chances on problems is because you have a culture that you believe can fix people.
Hmm.
So like it's like more on the organizations. Like, okay, you can have a bad season and have a top pick. And guess what? Sometimes when you're up there in top pick land, you have to take some morts. You have to overlook some things. So it's like, all right, we had a bad football season, but we still have a football culture that can develop and nurture and make these people the best that they can possibly be, make these players the best that they possibly can be. But and that's what Philadelphia did. They took the chance on him and it's worked out wonderfully. And even still, like you look at like they missed on Rager. They took Rager over Justin Jefferson, and look at the receiving group with AJ Brown and Devonta Smith. I don't think anybody's
And
still upset about that. And coming off a Super Bowl appearance,
and it was a first round pick they paid for AJ. That's it. It was literally one first round pick, and it's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's fine because I don't know who in the first round was going to be better than what AJ Brown did for them last year. So
exactly. And
much credit
AJ
to
Brown's a
them.
beast.
Yep,
AJ
credit
Brown's
to
a beast, and then you lose your starting running back in Myles Sanders and replace him with DeAndre Swift, and he looks, if I would say, completely better this year so far.
Yep. Congratulations, Detroit. You finally saw how DeAndre Swift was supposed to be used. And it's
Yeah,
like,
but don't worry, they got Jordan Montgomery.
oh, well, yeah. But they also have DeAndre Swift 2.0, Jameer Gibbs, that just doesn't see the field when David
Doesn't see his field.
Montgomery's there.
But we'll see because Montgomery got banged up this week, and I know Gibbs missed this week against Tampa Bay. So we'll see how it looks going into Baltimore this week, which I think is going to be a fun game. But we'll talk about that later in the week when we have the episode for you guys previewing what we're going to see in week 7. So, Angel, let's talk about two games that I know me and you were both personally excited to see this week. We could start off with Dolphins. Really strange game to begin because I thought Carolina was just kind of dead man walking going into this one. I didn't think they would have the offensive firepower to even keep up in this one. And, I thought maybe like how it was in that Detroit game that they had last week, where, okay, at the end where the game's a little bit out of reach, the offense looks a little bit more in sync. And, it was a big spread on this one, 14 points, 13 and a half, depending on what you got it. So I thought, okay, maybe there's some opportunity for them to cover later in the game when the Dolphins took their foot off the gas for a little bit or something like that. But it was actually the opposite. The Panthers got off to a very strong start of this game, going up 14-0, and then the Dolphins scored 35 unanswered points.
Yeah.
And it's just so strange being a Dolphins fan and being this confident in the offense because they did look really like weird at parts in this game, especially early in the game in that first quarter when they were down 7 and they had that third down play where they did like a fake quarterback sneak and then Tua whipped it out to Mostert coming out of the backfield, but threw it behind him, and then Mostert kind of gave up on the route, and it was still a live ball, so they lost like 5 yards on 3rd and 1. And Carolina, I think Frank Reich is obviously feeling some pressure, or maybe is trying to prove to ownership that Bryce Young wasn't the move, and CJ Stroud might have been the better pick at that number 1 overall spot. But they definitely tried some stuff. They had that fake punt early in the game. I thought Young looked pretty good early in the game, and then I don't know what really happened. And for me, the biggest takeaway for as a Dolphins fan is I'm still really concerned about the defense.
Yeah,
And
that's the thing.
and I know we got some reports that Jalen Ramsey could soon start practicing again. They'll have 21 days after he starts practicing to activate him from IR, or he has to go on IR for the rest of the season. So I don't expect him to be back, necessarily in the next few games, but hopefully he can start practicing, shaking some rust off, and get himself back into playing shape. But I know Wilkins had a good game, his first ever multi-sack game of his career, and it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with the Dolphins and Wilkins going into this offseason because he turned down long-term money from the organization, and he's having a pretty good year, especially after getting off to a slow start. But, you know, getting 14 points hung on your head that quickly into the game against a Carolina team that's been pretty bad through the first 5 weeks headed into this one is cause for concern in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, kind of like you said, at the end of the day, the only thing that I have an issue with the Dolphins, it's their only flaw is their defense. And I mean, obviously, I feel like it might come to the point at some, if the defense is not showing up, their offense is going to be their defense. So, kind of like how some teams in the past, like saying their offense is their defense. Well, for it'll be vice versa for the Dolphins because their offense is great. I mean, I think that's been established already. To At this point, he's the MVP right now. I don't think there's an argument on that because he's number one in almost every single category of passing wise. And then you have Tyreek Hill, who was amazing yesterday. Jalen Waddle finally almost had like a full Jalen Waddle game, 7 catches, 51 yards, and a touchdown. If he could have got like 80 yards, I feel like, okay, Jalen Waddle had like his breakout game. Hasn't had it yet, so it's definitely something to watch there. But overall, from the Dolphins offense, I love what I saw. The defense, it to me, I have to see something against one of these upper class teams. It's one thing like if you took Carolina unserious and you were like, all right, and then all of a sudden after they drop 14 points on you, they're like, okay, let's step it up because after that Carolina didn't
Yeah,
do
didn't do
anything
much.
until the
Yeah.
fourth quarter. So I feel like that will be the thing for the Dolphins. But overall, I feel like the Dolphins should be excited because I do even think they're going into a game this week that favors them. So I do want to see how this plays out now, and I do want to see if Jeff Wilson Jr. comes back and see how that running game now goes with him and Raheem Mostert splitting carries. See how that goes, and then
Mostert's so good. Mostert was
he's
so good again this weekend.
so
It's
good.
just it's just so fun to watch this offense when it's fully in rhythm. Like that play that they had for Mostert with the receiving touchdown, with Smythe coming into motion right as the play
It was
started, and then
genius.
basically being a lead blocker for him. Yeah, and then you look even towards the end of the game. I know Mike White. I was laughing because Mike White now has a bomb touchdown pass and a pick six. So anytime Mike White's coming in, no, a touchdown is happening. It might be for the wrong team, it might be for the Dolphins, but you look at Savan Ahmed that comes in later in the game, has runs really, really tough and then gets himself into the end zone. And you go down 14-0, and I was not sweating it. It might be because okay, it is the Panthers, but there was not even an ounce of fear in my heart. And it's just crazy to say that when we're talking about the Miami Dolphins team that's never, never been like this. And to lead the NFL in passing and rushing offense is insane, like
It's hard
just
to do.
insane. And I just wish the defense was a little bit better. Like I don't even need them to be dominant, but like giving them all. I get that some of this was in garbage time, but Adam Thielen went for 11 for 115, 8.8 yards per target. He was targeted 13 times and had 11 receptions. So that means we weren't really these were catches, clean catches for him. And
Yeah.
you know, the rest of the game, okay, they sacked Bryce Young 4 times. That offensive line in Carolina isn't that good. So we'll see. I think it's still definitely a work in progress. You know, Fangio has a complex defense that, he's trying to teach these guys after they just had this offseason programming, but it's also still, I don't think all these pieces necessarily fit into that style of a defense. So that's why I'm trying to see who is going to step up and be like, all right, this is who we know we can build around long term,
Yeah.
and then go from there.
Yeah. Right now, it would be kind of like how you said. I want to see how they go because right now they're near the 20s in defense. We have to see what happens tonight. Obviously, after the Chargers and Cowboys game, where they're ranked is after 6 weeks. But to me, if they could just end up like, if they could be in that range of like 13 to 15 ranked defense in the league, I feel like they can go so far. I feel like they can go far, and I don't know why they wouldn't be the odds favorites to win the Super Bowl, considering how explosive their offense is.
And the defense is going to suffer a little bit because of how good the offense is, because of how explosive they are, especially, it might not take scoring drives aren't going to take as long as it will for a team that's going to have 15, 17 play drives just to get 3 points or something like that. So that's one thing that I understand. Okay, the defense is going to see a lot more plays, and especially because the opposing team knows, like, all right, their offense is who we want to keep on the sideline. So let's, run the ball more. Let's keep, bleed the clock, lean on the defense, run up that time of possession. So not only can the defense tire out, but then the offense is off the field. So I do understand. I just, 14 points against the Panthers. That's what I was
Yeah,
like,
like
oh God, oh God.
it's like, wait,
And you got
what
Tommy
happened?
Tremble over here hurdling people. I'm like, bro, what? Like, what? This is like tight end 17 out here stunting on my defense.
Oh my
And you
gosh.
got Frank Reich thinking he can run fake punts with a pass. It's like, oh my goodness, these guys think that they might beat us today.
I mean, that's football, man. That's football.
Yeah, let's move on to the last game that we will recap for you guys today. And it was a game that I think me and Angel were definitely smelling upset, and honestly probably should have been an upset, but the Cincinnati Bengals hung on for dear life and escaped a home victory against the Seattle Seahawks with a final score of 17-13. Just for a side note to everybody, unders this week in the NFL 9-2, 17-13. Quite interesting final score of a football game. What was the Brown score? 19-17.
Yeah.
It was such a weird week. I guess it's just spooky season, man. You gotta chalk it up to that. But what did you think of this game? I thought Joe Burrow kind of took a step back after we kind of
Yeah.
thought we
Yeah,
might be
absolutely.
back. And remember what I said on the podcast? All right, Mr. Jamar Chase, I get it. All right, 200 yards, but fam, you beat the Cardinals. And everybody was like, all right, Joe Burrow, he might be back. Fam, it was against the Cardinals. And then
This
this
is a
week,
team with a
kind of
backup
back to what
quarterback.
we've seen the rest of the season. 24 of 35, 185 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, sacked 3 times, quarterback rating 88.4.
And had a QBR of 36 on scale of 0 to 100 of 36. Like that, Cincinnati, they played good in the first half. Like they were good in the first half, but the second half, I genuinely feel like outside of the defense, the offense did everything they could to lose this game because you only scored 3 points the whole like second half. And credit to the Bengals defense because they only allowed 3 points the whole second half. So it was kind of just a push, a wash at the end of the day. But I would go for their offense. It's like, man, like, are you guys going to be consistent? Joe Burrow kind of like he looks healthier now. He's been able to move a little bit, but in terms of like the way how the offense is moving, it's not good. Like I don't like what I see out of them. And for Joe Mixon to be completely like non-existent in this offense, that's something new to me because ever since he's been drafted, he's always been a big focal point of their offense. He's been really effective in the passing game, and he had 3 catches for 24 yards, which isn't bad. But then rushing wise, he had 12 carries for 38 yards. That wasn't good at all. And then T. Higgins comes back. obviously he didn't have the best game. And then Jamar Chase, he had an okay game, 6 catches for 80 yards. So it's like, all right, but one of those catches was 31 yards. So essentially, if I take away that 131-yard play, you have 5 catches for 50 yards. So like I just don't know what to say about them. Oh well, you're on mute.
This guy that caught the touchdown for them, this Andre Isovas, one target, one reception, 3 yards and a touchdown. No disrespect to him. I just find it funny because it was his 24th birthday yesterday. So I was wondering if they did it on purpose.
They
Like,
had
all
to.
right, if we
They
get
had to
into
do
the
it.
if we get in like 5 yards or shorter, this is gonna be who we're targeted in the red zone. I just thought that was funny. And it had to drive fantasy owners insane that Tyler Boyd's the one that catches the other pass. So you
Oh,
either had Andre or Tyler Boyd as your touchdown scores for the Cincinnati Bengals. But I mean, what a weird season that they're having so far. I mean, it feels like they're a lot worse than their 3-3 record, but I
they're still
don't
in it
feel
somehow.
any better after these two victories against uh the Cardinals and now the Seahawks, because at least the Cardinals victory, I was like, all right, this was the get right game. This is when the offense will start getting back together. They played a bad defense. They're going to look good now. They're going to have some confidence, but we'll see the Burrow Chase connection. We'll see the Burrow Chase connection, pick up where we've left off. But that's not the case. And then if Geno Smith just didn't throw these damn interceptions, because
Seattle
if
wins
you
this
look at
game.
everything else outside of his interceptions, he had a good game. He passed for 323 yards, almost 8 yards per attempt. Um, he was throwing the ball deep down the field. He was trying to get it to DK, to Tyler. You even saw Smith and Jigma finally getting involved in the offense, but just threw the two interceptions, and that was basically all she wrote. And they had a chance late in the game. They were pretty close and just
He
couldn't
threw the
get into the
perfect
end zone.
pass to set him up, where he had that great throw down the middle of the field. It was caught. I was like, oh man, you're so close to the goal line. Like all you have to do is just get the touchdown. I don't care how you get the touchdown. And bro, like you said, it was like Gino, man. Like, come on.
Yeah, like, bro, we're trying to win here.
Oh man,
But
the
I feel really good about this Seattle team. I I know that they still play in the same division as the San Francisco 49ers, so it's going to be tough for them to be anything but the wild card. But, you know, they're going to have an interesting schedule too. So they go back home for the next two against the Cardinals and the Browns. The Browns game, I think, is going to be a fun one that we should have circled. And they go at Baltimore, another fun game. Then back home against Washington, not as fun, but has weird potential going on.
Washington's been playing better, so
Yeah.
I could say that has maybe one game that will be better than what we expect.
And then this is where it gets tough. So they go at LA, who they already lost to them week 1. So they go at LA, then they have Sunday night home against San Francisco, at Dallas, then follow that up again against the 49ers, this time in San Francisco, then home Philly. So that's San Francisco home, at Dallas, at San Francisco, home Eagles. That's a
If they
stretch
can
right there where
split
I'm
those 4 games and go 2-2, I think that's a great actual.
and I want to see how they look in those games too, because I like their defense. I especially with how Witherspoon has played so far to start off his
Great.
career. We already saw what Tyreek Woolen did last year. Their defensive line. I mean, we saw what they were able to do against that terrible Giants offensive line. They sacked Burrow yesterday 4 different times. So, and we know that Pete Carroll's going to try to run the ball. I'm a huge fan of Kenneth Walker. We really haven't seen Charbonnet get any you know, extended opportunity to showcase what he's been doing. And they really haven't gotten DK going all that much this year. And I mean, DK is at the point where he's good for one 15-yard personal foul penalty just randomly in the middle of the game because he
Yeah,
decided to take off a cornerback's head just for the fun of it.
yeah. I mean, the worst part, I think DK is such a good player, but man, I don't think he has that connection with Gino that people want them to have. I feel like he has that connection with Tyler Lockett. If not, I do think he could develop that connection with JSN.
And that's what I was betting on. That's what everybody was betting on. Like, what the heck? Where is it?
And but like you said, we were able to at least see some of it yesterday because I do think JSN had a very good game. The only thing I'm curious to see now with Seattle is like, all right, when you play these upper echelon teams, it's kind of like the Bengals who we had high expectations for, like you said, like how do you play, especially against those teams? Because if you look good in those games, it's like, all right, maybe Seattle can, like if they make like one or two moves, maybe they can be in that NFC title game for what we know. Because the NFC is kind of we don't have a favorite in the NFC because the 49ers, we have questions on quarterback with Brock Purdy if some injuries happen. The Eagles, we have questions about their defense. Dallas, they're so inconsistent. We don't know which version of the team we're going to see every week. The Lions, we like their team, but we still know at the end of the day, hey, Jared Goff got traded from the Rams for a reason.
And it's still the Lions. Like they still have to prove it. Like I know it's been fun to watch them so far, and they do
And they
have,
still have to
I
prove
think,
it.
above average defense and a fun offense to watch. But like that's an organization that has never done anything. Like they have to prove it first.
Yeah. So Seattle has an opportunity to, to really do something, but we're gonna have to see. I mean, because it's still early. I would like to see what teams do before the trade deadline because I feel like maybe if they can add a couple of pieces, I would really like Seattle if they can add a weapon like Brian Burns. I feel like if they can do that, I would really like their chances of moving forward. If not, I mean, try to call up Chicago, see what you can probably get weapons out of them because I know they don't have that much weapons. But if maybe in terms of if they could help you out on defense a bit, maybe if you could get like a linebacker or something out of them, just so that way at least you can help. Or if not, maybe try to get another secondary running back because Charbonnet hasn't seen the field. I think it's mainly because they like him in the passing game more than Kenneth Walker.
And I would just play Kenneth Walker all the time. Like personally, as a coach, like I just love the kid. Like I would just like, all right, he gets all our rushing touches.
Yeah, he's great. So it's definitely something to watch with Seattle. But I am excited for it. The only thing I do want to touch on before we go, bro, how is this like? I don't know how to say this for anyone. And I think Myles can attest to this. Who's gonna stop JP?
I don't know, bro. I don't know. I don't think
Bro,
it's possible.
so for anyone, if they heard our last week podcast,
I don't think it's
JP
possible.
scored about 200 points last week, almost. He was very close. And this week, again, he scores 147. Or it's like, bro, like how do you stop this guy? And note, it helps that he has Raheem Mostert, Tyreek Hill, Brees Hall, just to name a couple of players.
Yeah, he's on a tear. He's on a tear. I think it'll be the upset. It'll be Browns 49ers level upset if he doesn't win it this year, to be honest. Or unless he just gets, and I can't even say like unless he gets an injury, it would have to be like unless he gets two or three guys injured. Like unless he gets I know some people were putting on Twitter this week that they both had Justin Jefferson and
HN.
who who else was ruled out this week? Oh, and Etienne. Yeah, yeah.
So I
That
mean,
that's the only route. That's the only way I could see that happen.
the closest team to him was Pete, who scored 142. So it was definitely close for him. But and like after this week, I'm like, bro, my team has to go insane just for me to like have a chance against JP. So
It's not something that I'm looking forward to the
yeah,
rest of the
I
season.
already played him, and bro, he almost beat me by 100. Like I'm just like, I'm just glad I
That's
didn't
what type
lose
of
by
season we're
100.
talking about, people. Almost beat Angel by 100.
And I feel like I have a solid team. I'm obviously my running back position was just so weak. Like it's so weak. But it did get better. I did get Saquon, so at least that does help a bit. But it's like, bro, how am I supposed to stop him when he has arguably the two best offensive players on the Dolphins? It's like I'm trying, people.
Yeah. I'm literally trying my hardest. I'm trying, Karen.
Like I'm trying. And this even goes for like for Myles, for anyone that doesn't know, I mean, he had Debo and Christian McCaffrey, and both of them went out, but
How'd that work out?
yeah. But I mean, still has a good team, and now he's gonna be 6-0. I think we'll have like a 3 or 4 way tie for 4-2.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
think
definitely
four.
something.
I think last time I checked, it depends on what happens today too.
Yeah, it depends on what happens, but oh man, bro, because I just looked at it, and then when JP like put a comment, it's like, I know he posted again like on a story, like a quote of me, like saying JP put on a clinic, where I was like, bro, did you not see what your team did?
Yeah, yeah. It's tough right now. It's not looking good for the rest of us. And we obviously are people with integrity, so we're not going to just try to make our teams better by getting one of these last place teams just to trade us their roster for Tim Tebow or something like that. So I don't know exactly what my plan is. Maybe an actual legitimate trade, and I can get a stud, maybe a 3-for-1 or something, just because I got to switch up the vibes. Not liking how my team performed this week, and I can't have somebody just run away with the league. So JP, I'm coming for you, brother.
Yeah. First it was Nick because he did win it last year. That is defending champ. But bro, he like, oh man, that's insane. So but also like we said, fantasy, anything can happen. This is fantasy football. One team could be like 2-3. Next thing you know, they end the year on such a hot streak, they win the title.
Yeah, that's
So
exactly what, and it's just like I said, it just we'll see what happens with injuries, playoff matchups, because you can have one of the better rosters, and the next thing you know, playoffs come around, your roster of guys they already secured their spot in the playoffs, don't need them as much, they don't have their greatest day as far as production goes. So who knows? Still a long
yep,
season.
yep, very long season, but man, it's been a fun week. So I am definitely looking forward to next week and our next episode because, guys, we're going to do a deep dive on the Dolphins Eagles game. That's going to be an
No,
awesome.
it's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of fun, and I can't wait to talk about Ravens Lions this week too. That's going to be
Ooh.
fun too. I like that one for the early games.
Oh, man. Well, Miles, you're all good to send us off.
All right, and until next time, peace.